Are you
Meeting
there?
is being recorded.
Mexico City, are you there? Can't hear them. I heard them yesterday. Oh, I'm sorry. Next time, but they are there. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to November WIT session. And my name is Serpil Bayraktar. I think I know all of you actually, which is wonderful. Thank you all for coming. We have a fantastic speaker. It's a very important nonprofit right here in San Francisco. And I'm going to let someone else introduce the speaker, our own Judy Priest, who's a distinguished engineer and my mentor, who's on the board of this nonprofit. She and I discussed this a while back, and I'm so pleased to bring finally them over here to tell us what they are doing. We really want this to be a discussion. So if you have questions, please ask them as the speaker goes along. And then, as you know, the WebEx cannot hear you unless the question is spoken to the microphone. So try to get the microphone to you, but also our speaker will try to repeat the questions. So Judy?
Well, can you hear me okay? So I'm Judy Priest. I'm a distinguished engineer. Um, Mentoring and supporting women in tech is a mission that is very near and dear to my heart. It's very important to me on a personal level because of my own journey. And I got to the point where I was trying to figure out how can I have more impact and broader reach. And so I started to look to board service for that. And by the way, if any of you are considering ever being on a nonprofit board, I highly encourage it. Find a cause you believe in and that is meaningful to you. Find an organization that drives it, and just get involved. And if you want to reach out and talk to me, I'm happy to chat with you. So I had never heard of Women's Audio Mission before I got a call from Terry Winston, and we were going to talk for about half an hour, and we ended up talking for over an hour and a half. And when I hung up the phone with her, I was completely hooked. I was like, what can I do? How can I help? And if you think about it, like we know numbers for women in tech are bad because we're sitting in those meetings and we are living it every day. But the numbers for women in sound, music, and media are even worse. And I'm not talking about the performers and artists, which was kind of what I first thought when I started talking with Terry. I'm talking about the production team, the sound engineers, what Terry calls the gatekeepers. And they are. Because if you think about it, sound and audio is such a fundamental way of how we communicate with each other. And as we women are on this journey of finding our voice, shouldn't we also have some say in how our message is heard and what content is broadcast? So imagine there are no more gatekeepers. That's why I'm so excited to bring Terry here. She is actually moving the needle for our local women and girls in San Francisco and Oakland. And WHAM is giving them a place to be safe, to be loud and proud, and to be themselves. And often that means also finding a future career in STEM that they never even knew existed. So please give a warm Cisco welcome to the Executive Director of Women's Audio Mission, Terry Winston.
I love Judy. It's easy to talk to Judy for an hour and a half, but I didn't know it was an hour and a half. Well, thank you all so much for coming out and for the warm welcome and for having us here today. I wanted to introduce, we also have Elena Botkin-Levy, who's our managing director here, um, because it takes a village to do what we're doing, actually. So I wanted to start out just kind of framing what the issue is a little bit more. Judy definitely did a great job of explaining it, but um, maybe if we just talk about what we listened to today, and whether that's a podcast or the news or your phone or YouTube. This morning. Okay, QED. Any podcasts this morning? Okay, news.
For economics?
Yeah. How about music people? Any music listeners this morning? You guys are kind of quiet, but we'll get it going here. What did you, Spotify, yes. Oh, yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to get us, okay, let me ask you this. Did anybody spend this morning in complete silence? That's
Very
what I'm
odd.
trying, right? So, although you guys were kind of silent there, um, right? So, what I'm getting at is I think we can all agree the importance of all of that media, the amount of that sound and messages that we listen to every single day, but also the importance of it. We know how pervasive it is. It's also very persuasive. It's subliminal, right? All of those messages in our that soundtrack that's there all the time. And then to think about this alarming. Ready? That's what I do. I show up and I break things. Where I'm at the end. There we go. So sound is important. And then we get to this really alarming statistic. There's less than 5% women and gender nonconforming folks that are in those production spaces deciding how things sound or what gets left in, what gets put in, and what gets kept out. So the gatekeeper situation. So what that means is that over 50% of the population is not having sounds or media catered to them, right? So ideas, perspectives, points of view of women and girls aren't being represented on a daily basis. So to us, that's a crisis, right? That's influencing politics. That's influencing media. That's influencing what our girls are listening to every day, right? And this is across all of the sectors, from media to music to podcasts, the whole thing, right? So this is one of the critical things that Women's Audio Mission focuses on. And the other half, which I think a lot of you here would probably connect with, and Judy especially connected with, was this decline, a 70% decline in young women entering college STEM programs. And that sounds like, oh, something from the dark ages, but this is just since the year 2000. So it's a relatively, this decline is relatively new. I'm an electrical engineer. I studied in the 80s, or almost before electricity. Not really. Still, yeah, we still had like water. Um, right. So this decline, when I was studying engineering in the 80s, I felt really supported. I felt like this is a new thing. We're getting women into this. This is great. We hit 2000, boom, 70% backslide. That to me is another crisis. Like we made all this progress, and why would we go backwards? That's insane. Right? So these are two, we see these two as just incredibly critical issues that nobody else is really focusing on. It takes getting in the trenches and making this happen, and that's what Women's Audio Mission does. So we've been doing this for almost 17 years now. And so this is what 16 and a half years of Women's Audio Mission looks like. We've trained 16,500 women and girls with very hands-on, job-specific creative technology training. We've placed over 800 women in careers at like Dolby, Pixar, Electronic Arts, Skywalker, um, doing sound for the Hillary Clinton and Mary J. Blige interview for Apple. So these are the kind of career paths we're placing them in. And then we also connect women to really career altering, especially for a free career that you're trying to start, professional credits in our recording studio with artists like Angelique Kidjo that we won a Grammy with. We also just had Beyonce's band in the studio, Kronos Quartet, Nico Case, Tune Yards, Toro y Moi, artists like that. And then also things like podcasts, Pod Save America, National Geographic. We just had the two founders of Instagram at the studio talking to Song Exploder, if you know that podcast. And then audiobooks as well with Simon and Schuster and Hachette and Macmillan. So those are the kind of credits that can really launch a young woman's career. So at this point, and if you guys have questions, I will keep going otherwise. Feel free to interrupt me. I enjoy that. True. So it's a UCLA study that was done in 2016. And yes, it's a decline. And I know it's a decline because there's less in these programs. They're having trouble retaining them. So even if they're getting them right at the onset, trouble retaining. So I saw more people, I think, in my engineering school in the Midwest in the 80s now. I don't know. What's that?
The comment is we were minorities
Yeah,
back then.
we were. I think we just don't focus on it anymore. And I had all male all my professors were male. I didn't have any women. I don't know. My generation, there was 0 women engineering professors, but they were really supportive. They were like, "You're going to do this." I also had a father that was an engineer, so there's that. But yeah, we don't actually. $1 million question is why we don't. I have my ideas on it, but I don't know. Go there, but we're more focused on the solving it. No, these things solve it. So instead of like trying to pick apart why, let's just do this. So that's the way we handle it. We're training over 2,000 now, women and girls every year, and we do this in a pretty unique way. We do this in the only recording studios in the world built and run entirely by women. And we chose this because this environment is really technology fueled, and it uses media to attract girls to the technology, and it's really easy access points to things like computer science and electronics, code, to physics, acoustics. All those things are kind of wrapped up in this environment, and so especially underserved girls, being in this space is really powerful. It's like you get behind that console with all the knobs and the faders, and it's like driving a spaceship. They feel like, whoa, I'm in charge now. And so that's why we chose this environment. It's kind of the epitome of like a really cool technology fueled space. So we're focusing very specifically on the most vulnerable communities in California. So of our students, 96% are low income. They're coming from communities with the highest high school dropout rates in the state of California, so 30 to 40%. 73% don't have access to a computer or a mobile device, and we're in Silicon Valley, so I find that particularly troubling, right? That's really going to make you far behind. 90% are girls of color, and then 78%, 78% have never touched a musical instrument. So I don't know. In my day, I went to a really crappy public school, and we had a music program, and it was really not a good school, but we still had a music program. All of the music programs are cut. And I know for me, and I think this is true, probably because we have a lot of engineers in the room, you will attest to this, music and math are really tied together. And I think I learned more about math from music than, or at least it fueled me continuing to do math. So taking that away as an option, I also feel has had its effects on all of this. So to us, it's really important that they at least experience that and decide what that means in their life. So we definitely focus on that. What's great is it's all kind of dire until we get them, and they actually thrive really quickly. They get cocky a little too fast, but they say things like that. But which I really, picking apart this phrase that comes up a lot, I really like it because they're actually seeing themselves as the boss. And so that's a big shift for a girl to be like, I'm going to be the boss. So that's a critical, to me, it's like, I don't even care that they don't know what they're doing, but they think they do. I kind of feel like that's something that girls generally don't do. So to see them do this actually makes me really happy. I also like them questioning if I'm the boss. That's an interesting conversation that we've had. So that's a critical moment. So they're doing things like learning how to build a synthesizer with electronics kits or a speaker with parts from home accessories, things like that. They learn to use code to make sounds and create drum machines, which is kind of important that they learn to create things that they can hear in popular music, because you can be like, hey, that was on Beyonce's record, that sound, and they're like, oh my God, I made that sound, right? So that's a cool connection that they can make. And then the last part of it, when they graduate, them kind of owning that title of engineer is really important because it allows them to kind of reimagine what that means. I'm going to be kind of a little bit crass, but I think when you, especially in the populations we're serving, if we say the word engineer or STEM, they run for the hills kind of situation. I think they visualize, like, no offense, a nerdy white guy. So, I mean, I think for them to be like, oh, wait, this is actually a cool thing. And they have kind of these role models that are young women that look like them. They're redefining what that means. And I think that broadens what it means to be an engineer. And, you know, I'm really proud to be an engineer. I'm a daughter of an engineer. But I also had that support in claiming that title. So this is providing that support so that they learn how to claim that title for themselves and, you know, go out in the world and say, hey, I'm an engineer. Like, it's a cool thing for a change. Not that it's not cool, because I think it's the coolest thing ever, but I don't know that they initially start out like that. Um, so we're growing incredibly quickly, and that's why we love having Judy on our board, because it takes, like I said, it takes a village. We opened a location in Oakland in 2017, and so we have one in San Francisco and one in Oakland. So we're on track to serve 3,000 girls every year by the end of 2020. And then to top things off, we made Elena's job really hard by opening, come on, a location in San Jose. Or no, I'm sorry, we're working towards opening a location, but partnering with the Tech Museum, Intel made an investment for us to pilot this in San Jose and see how we can work towards bringing our programming to San Jose, which we're excited about. And we also have classes for adults. So we have a lot of people that are in technology in this room right now. So feel free to come and take an adult class, but we have certification courses in everything from recording engineering to live sound, also audio electronics.
I certainly need the audio
No,
certification.
your skills you have mad skills. She sets this whole thing up and it was doing all the troubleshooting by herself. I've actually found it pretty amazing. So you don't even need the class. You could partially teach the class, which would be great. So that's part of the journey of our students. But then this culminates in our internship program, which is really important to us. About 20 women every year come and shadow our engineers, and then they also are trained to mentor the girls, the middle and high school girls in our girls program, so that those girls have college-aged role models to talk to. And then it also reinforces the interns' knowledge, because teaching obviously makes you better at whatever you're trying to do. So that's important. It's doubly important because I think it's 85% of our staff started as interns. So we're very invested in that training and how they get into not only our staff but other jobs, because we placed 800 women in careers. That's places like Dolby. I think we have 25 at this point. Sony, Google, Pixar. Sound design for Harry Potter films. So this is a happy day when we get a woman into a career that they're really happy with. I don't know where I'm going now. Oh, then there's a I got lost. So the other part is our studio. We have 2 recording studios in San Francisco that we operate, and so we're connecting them to really high-level projects. Some of these have been in our studio, and some of them we're connecting our engineers to their team in other cities. But our graduates have worked with Andra Day and Alanis Morissette, Tegan and Sarah. We put people on tour with Tracy Chapman and Roseanne Cash. Tori Moa is going to be back in the studio in December. Tune Yards, Aniko Case, Kronos Quartet. We did a really cool project. This is a cool thing we did with ESPN. What you'd think, right? The sports channel. What are they going to want to do with women's audio mission? But ironically, I had spoke at a school. I guess they hired a woman that I had spoke at her school, and she convinced her boss to have us to create the anthem for a show that they were doing on Black female athletes. And so they called us up and just said, we're going to give you a grant we want you to write this anthem. So we were able to get a local Oakland artist, Rihanna J., and an all African American engineering crew in our studio, and they filmed it, did a whole music video, and then that got signed to Hollywood Records, and then it was featured on Good Morning America and The View, and it was like a really emotional thing because there's not only no women in this, right? There's 2% women in it, according to the Annenberg study, but there's like 0 women of color. It's like, so to have the whole team be an African American crew, an artist, was just they actually cried because they had never been all together working in that environment together. Like it was just a very emotional experience for them. I kind of didn't think about that impact until the day it happened, and I saw this. So it was a really cool thing that ESPN kind of went out on a limb and produced that. So that was a really cool project that we did. Which leads us to, we just had Beyonce. I thought I would throw that in there today. Beyonce's band. And we had, so Kat Dyson is was Prince's guitar player all through Purple Rain and through Prince and the Revolution. So we had her plus all of Beyonce's band, which was the best musicians ever in the whole planet Earth. Really fun day, and it was fun to have them. Kat, I spent some time with, and she said, "This is the first time I've been in a studio and somebody hasn't mansplained to me." And I'm like, "Wait, what? You're Kat Dyson." And they're like, she goes, "Every time I come in, they tell me how to set up all my stuff." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So this is what we're up against, right? So it was just super. They had a really great time, and it was fun for them to say, like, this is a totally different recording experience for us. So we were happy to have them say that. We were just voted Best of San Francisco this year, Best Hope for the Future of Music. What was really nice about that was we've really woven ourselves into the fabric of San Francisco. The city of San Francisco has been a big supporter of ours, and we've really changed the landscape of the city of San Francisco. Every venue in San Francisco that we know of has a woman graduate of ours in it. The studios all have our women graduates in it, and a lot of the tech companies are hiring our graduates as well. So that's a new thing that we can bring to other cities, right? And say, this is how you can change it. It's changed so much that when I talk to, how many people know the artist Tune Yards? Nobody knows Tune Yards. Wow. Okay, yay, Tune Yards. Are you a fan? Okay, everyone talk to her about Tune Yards. Okay, so Meryl's really amazing and tours. So the other half of Tune Yards is male. And he said to me, "Terry, I don't think there's a problem anymore." I said, and Meryl said, "That's because you're thinking of San Francisco. You don't have a problem here when we leave." And then he was like, "Oh, you're right. When we leave, there aren't any women working in sound." So it's gotten to that place where in San Francisco where people are actually, it's like they're thinking there's no issue anymore, which I take as a high compliment because I feel like we fixed it there. So that's also that the SF Weekly kind of pointed that out was nice for us. So because we've had so much success in the region, we started to get a lot of demand all over the world and across the country, especially the city of Los Angeles, which is tight with the city of San Francisco. But I think because the city government funds us in San Francisco, they've gotten the city of Los Angeles very interested in what we're doing. And so what we started to do to kind of meet that demand before we could start raising the money to open locations was to do conferences. And we started these in 2017. And we've been to Los Angeles, New York, Boston, and Nashville. And we've reached 800 women in about a year and a half. And it's connecting these women to really iconic spaces that they wouldn't have access to. Like we did this at Capitol Studios and Capitol Records, which is a very famous recording studio. We also did it at Ocean Way in Nashville, which is another very famous studio. And then also places like Alicia Keys' studio. We did one there in New York. We also do this at YouTube Spaces in both LA and New York, and then at NYU, and Disney Animation Studios was another thing we did in LA. So these are spaces you can't just walk into. So we've done the conferences there. So that's one draw. The other draw is that we're connecting them to their heroes, basically. So really up there, producers and engineers in the industry like Linda Perry. Does anybody know who Linda Perry is? Probably not. Okay, I'll lay it out for you. Well, Linda Perry has written probably all the most famous pop songs for like Christina Aguilera, for Pink, Dolly Parton. She used to be in Four Non Blondes. She was the lead singer of Four Non Blondes. So she's a really well-known producer in our industry. So connecting her to the women in our program is super important. And then we also have multiple Grammy winners. Emily Lazar's worked with David Bowie and Beck. Ann Mincieli is Alicia Keys' engineer. So we're really in people like Simone Torres, who's Rihanna's engineer. Yes.
I'm just curious, how did you get connected with all these artists, the famous ones?
I actually know all these people. So I was signed as a recording artist, and I've worked in this industry for 30 plus years. So most everybody up there I know. So I just sorry. Yeah, from working in it, I connected them to it, to us. So yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it is they're like, oh, this is cool. I can train other people how to do this. So it's not really a hard sell, to be honest. They've been pretty supportive. So yeah, we're really excited about this. For now, it didn't really go as planned because we thought we would go to all these cities and figure out which one had the most demand. We're like, okay, this will help us figure out where to go next. And then they all sold out with a waiting list. So we don't know now anything different than we did before, except there's a ton of demand. It turns out we're focusing on Los Angeles first just because there's funding, there's interest, and it's probably going to be easier for us to fund it and get it off the ground. So I think, solving California would be a very good move for us to bring this to other places, but Nashville's kind of a close second. They're screaming pretty loud right now. So that's how we're dealing with that. And just to kind of give you an idea of how the village that makes this work, but we're getting funded from government agencies all the way from federal to city, as well as Cisco. Hello. So yeah, okay, I'll tell you a story about yeah, right? I'll tell you a story about Cisco was tied for our first funder ever in 2003. So yeah, come on. 16 years of Cisco funding, which we're really excited. Yeah, and they took a big risk. Cisco took a big risk on us because when we first started out, we were very, super tiny. And so, yeah, having that funding has really, made our programs grow from, 50 kids to 2,000 every year. So that's a really big deal. So other corporations, Dolby's a big supporter of ours, obviously, because of the audio component of all of this. But other family foundations, Intel, that's how we keep this happening. Cisco, Judy's going to tell me to say this, so if I'm going to do it now, so Judy won't have to remind me. We are an approved nonprofit in the Cisco, what is it called? Bright funds. Just saying, everything gets matched 2 to 1. There you go. Double your efforts there. So this is the village that keeps us rolling. What's that?
So the question is, how
can we volunteer? So the volunteer opportunities that we mostly have are on the board because everything with the girls, we can't really have volunteers. So in the educational place, because everybody has to be insured and TB tested and that. So background check. So we typically don't do volunteers within our actual program services, but there's plenty of opportunities around board service and then also our events. So we're doing a big event in April 29th at the Independent. Those events typically, last time we had Sheila E. performed. The year after that we had St. Beauty, which is Janelle Monet's tour mates. So they're pretty big events and we always need volunteers for that. So that would be how, and I'll talk about that also in a minute. More. Okay, volunteering, here we go.
She had the question, how did you get all these famous people join you? I just wanted to say, I have a daughter which is now 15, but when she was in the elementary school, her math teacher taught them how to do the common denominator and some math algorithm using music.
Oh,
And
wow.
2, 3 years later, I saw her doing her math, singing the same song that she learned in elementary school. And she never forgot that formula. Unfortunately, that teacher, which my daughter was looking forward to go to math, he couldn't afford living in Bay Area,
Yeah.
so he had to move that. He said, I can't pay rent. But I'm just saying how music has effect on young children. She knows all the lyrics of all these famous,
Right.
singers. But if you tell her to memorize one line, she won't do it. But
Right.
she'll memorize. So it's very. I can see that's one of the reason I came here because I could see how much music helped her to learn things.
Oh,
And
good.
I know your effort is in like low income and like some places where I live, it's not low income. I have money, but I really don't see the schools of even high income area to encourage the teachers or the way they can use music. It's there are things that Cisco does. I volunteer for all this. I volunteer for like middle schooler to STEM and all this. But I say, I wish my daughter had the opportunity. I couldn't even bring her here to be part of that, right? There aren't, and it's because it's not cool to be engineer or she
Mhm.
was so good in math, but now because her friends, now she's a 10th grader, it's not cool to be good at math. They even make fun of each other.
That's
So
terrible. Yeah.
I'm just saying, even the high income or some places, you need to have that cool kids to be
Mhm.
interested because they're interested in music, to be interested in math, then they can change the world, together, not only like one section of. And I will sound bad because I do volunteer. I appreciate those people need more help, but I wish we could do it for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So we're across 3 school districts now, and it's not that we don't want to serve, it's that we don't have the bandwidth to serve. So when we go of this that we should serve, and Elaine is the one that has to make those tough decisions, and we often have the like, oh, we have to do these until. So I mean, we've talked to the Oakland Unified School District in particular, who's expressed interest. It's just hard to figure this out within the district of like embedding this into their schools. So the conversation is happening. It's just a very difficult, I'm sure, as all of you know, with school districts, like getting a school district to change something is like, pulling giant boulders up the mountain. So yeah, no, it should be for everybody. Of course it should. We're just like, this is what we can focus on now. And once we can meet all that demand, yes, of course. And it's also just a way to say, if we can do this in the most difficult areas, we can do it anywhere. That's kind of how we talk about it to a district. Like, look, if we can do it over there with no money to support it, we can certainly do this here. And then they kind of will be like, oh, maybe. And we're looking at doing kind of paid programs in our studio in the summers. So that's something Elena's been pushing on that. And I'm dancing as fast as I can. Okay.
So kind of related, I was going to ask the same thing that we being in this area, what is our best bet? Where can our girls, like you showed 3 San Jose locations where you're partnering. Is it open to our kids?
It's only open to those schools that we partner with directly, what are those? Hoover, Ohlone, and Burnett?
Yeah, Hoover, Ohlone Middle, and William Fisher.
Oh, it's just that's how we have to do it with the district, is to partner directly with the school. So it's also because it's not a drop-in program, it's a curriculum, it's 14 weeks. So yeah, we have to make it like line up with each school's scheduling, but we're working on it. So I would say, and I'll show you this at the end, but we have movement towards the summer program. It won't be here, it'll be in San Francisco, but that's something that everybody could sign up for and participate in. Sure.
Hi, my name is Roshanak. First of all, thank you so much for doing this for
Aw,
the
thank
young
you.
girls and for the community. Now that you have given a microphone to these young women and of all ages, I have an idea. How about having them work on little short, fun recordings programs that could be used in classrooms all over, kind of following up on yours. It would not be limited to any particular, any teacher could show it as a little break in their science program to kind of reinforce how important math and science is. When I used to volunteer for our public schools, I would ask them to give me some of their worst math performing class, and I would go and gamify a little
Mhm.
presentation as to, like, you know, if the electricity is done right, everything works fine. But if it's not designed right, nobody has done the calculation. These are some of the things that can happen, and the disasters that can happen, and make it fun. And then come up with games for them to think of whatever you want to do would be more successful if you know math. That was the core
Oh,
message.
I
And
say that
then
all the time. Yeah.
make it a game. Let them come up with the content. You
Mhm.
have creative 800, creative crew. Maybe they could each say it in their own words,
Mhm.
and the content could be made available to everyone.
I like it. We do that a little bit, but yeah. I don't know. I'm confused.
Also, we will have some questions from the online.
Just actually, I was going to say the same thing. This to me, like, because so many people from high income schools are asking, this is a revenue making opportunity for you, because the high income school districts like Palo Alto, Cupertino have ton of money parents want to give. So I
Right.
think that you could,
Absolutely.
so I think that should be a high priority. So you're off the corporate.
Talk
Sell
to
them,
Judy.
sell them
Judy's
the
in charge
program.
of everything. Wait, you talk to Judy. No, it is. No, we're definitely, we have to balance things out for various reasons. Okay. Are we on other questions? I think I'm almost done here, I think. I don't remember what I was doing. Well, I think I'm about to tell you how you can help us. So social media, we have a pretty robust social media subscriber base. The fun fact is that 49% are male. So what's important about that to us is that we post a lot of educational content. So it's interesting to us that we're cultivating a community that sees women as experts and they want to learn from women. So that's important. And two, that these are allies. So sometimes when people talk about our social media, they're like, oh, that's just for women. And it's like, no, it's half men, right, that want to see this happen. And so that's been really eye-opening to me. And it's also heartwarming for other women that are getting started to know that, so that they're like, oh, wait, this isn't just, there's a lot of men that will support me in this, because all of my mentors were men. So, I mean, I learned from all men. My father, I mean, all of the engineers I worked with were men. So, and that was a great experience for me. So I think for them to know that there's both has been really important in our social. So I think we're at, oh, right. Judy made me talk about myself. This is what it was. I put it at the end. So I think the question that comes up is why WHAM? Like, why did this happen? Like, why did I go there? So this is my father. My father's a PhD mechanical engineer. And I think hindsight, the inspiration was I spent my whole childhood in his lab. And so I was just surrounded by weird technology and art and music, and it was a really great combination for me. And so I think Women's Audio Mission combines my favorite things, which is technology and music, and the inspiration of that environment and that support that I had. And so I wanted to create something that provided that same environment for all girls, because my father actually got a lot of grief from my teachers and my neighbors for raising me the wrong way. Like and they would say it in front of me, like, John, you're raising your girl wrong. And he was like, he's a little eccentric, but he was like, whatever, which I'm really grateful for. And he doesn't remember these things, but I'm really grateful that he disregarded my gender from when I was very young. Like, he never brought it up. So in some ways it was great that he just didn't notice it. And to him, it's just like, I'm his flesh and blood and I'm smart and I can do these things. And they played a lot of tricks on me in his lab. So I don't know, you guys are all probably too young, but I'm of the terminal with the punch card situation to compile your programming. So, but they used to play tricks on me so that when I'd get on the terminal and I would try to log in, when it was only my login, it would just make the screen go blank. And then they'd say you broke it. And then my dad would come in and I'd be all upset and he'd get mad at them. But I think that's partially how I learned to navigate being around. I was around all men all the time. And, but at the same time, knowing that they would help me, you know, like they give me a hard time, but I also learned all this stuff from them. So again, I think Women's Audio Mission is creating the support that I had from my father, and then also the environment, right? That you could explore all these different things and find your way and find the thing that interests you in a place that you're comfortable. So I think, again, it's really key the way that we've socialized things so that technology is very gendered. And that's why it's not cool for a girl to do this. I was just really lucky that I had a weird dad who was just like, whatever, if you want to do it, you should just do it. So that's the journey of Women's Audio Mission. But I studied electrical engineering. I was signed as a recording artist. So I went from college to touring in a punk rock band and getting to work with a lot of interesting people and becoming a recording engineer and a producer and then becoming a professor at City College where I developed the sound recording arts program there. And then WHAM grew out of that program because we were able to get over 50% of the enrollment to be women. And so instead of me wandering around the country talking about how we did that, Women's Audio Mission kind of holds the best practices of how to make your student population diverse in technology fields. So that's enough of that, Judy. That's the part I don't want to do anymore. Is that okay? Can I move on? So how you can help. We kind of did this already. Obviously, funding is our biggest issue. We're always fundraising. And matches. So Cisco matches. So we love that. Talk to Judy about board service because that's the village that keeps us moving. We have an April 29th fundraising event that is they're always really fun. So if you become a member or ally or follow us on social media, you'll see how to sign up for that and attend. If you connect us to other companies in your network, that's always incredibly helpful. Like I said, we depend on a lot of corporations and doing events like this are really important to us. So anything like this that you can think of, feel free to reach out and those things all help and mobilize us. Sharing on social media is a simple and free thing. So that helps us a lot, like just saying, hey, I learned about this cool organization today and somebody else learns about it. And that could become a supporter of ours down the road, which often happens. So we're excited about that. But the newest development is fundraising campaigns on Facebook. We've been raising a lot of money with those. Easy birthday thing. And I don't know how many we had this year, but so many people are just doing it. People we don't know are doing it. And it's raises a lot of money for us. And of course, if you become a member or ally, we can keep in touch with you more often. And that's all of our stuff there. And I think we're on to questions. You have online questions.
Yes. Let's give online.
Let's give online a chance.
Yeah. So there are two questions about whether you are planning to expand. One is any discussion going on about expanding to Seattle. The other one is any plans to expand the program to the rest of the world, like Australia?
For instance, Australia. That's really interesting. So yes and yes to all of it. We're again, we're restricted by funding. So yes, we want to expand everywhere. So for instance, 2 weeks ago, we had a senator from Colombia that came to visit just to see how we do this and wants to bring it to Colombia. Over the summer, we had government officials from the UK that came and said, how could we bring this across the UK? So this, as you can see, this is like, we've hit a nerve, but it's funding. Because then I say to Colombia, well, we need money. I can't just like show up with a crew in Colombia and make, this happen. Ironically, we have connections all over the world of women engineers. So we do have engineers in Colombia. So, but it's still like we have to, put the structure in place. Yeah, and we've had Jamaica, Korea, somebody opened a fake women's audio mission in Turkey and didn't tell us. Then we found out about it. That was interesting. Uh, well, it was like they were trying to do the right thing, but they used the logo and everything, and so we're trademarked. So then the attorney, like, suddenly I get a call. They're like, "Do you know anything about this?" I'm like, "What are we talking about?" So yes, we want to expand everywhere. Seattle. I got an email yesterday actually. So we're doing little things like pop-ups. So we did a event that featured Prince had all women engineers. I don't know if you know that. And so we did an event with all of Prince's women engineers. And we did this in multiple parts of the country, and it's just been an incredible journey because these women nobody knows who they are, and they've been really influential in this industry. Like, they've changed how recordings have been made for everybody, and nobody even knows their name, so we found that to be, so that's become a particularly popular event. And the Grammy chapter in Seattle is wanting to get us to do that in April, so that could be coming to Seattle in April. I can't. Australia, maybe. Sure, why not?
The other question, I want to take one more from online. This is like a suggestion. Perhaps the girls could take a field trip to learn more about the music program at USC. Dr. Dre and his Beats headphones partner donated a ginormous amount of like $70 million to start that program. Any?
Yeah, no, we
thoughts
know
about
about that. So we're talking to UCLA and USC and the city of Los Angeles. So we do, but I love suggestions because who knows, there's always a stone we have not unturned. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we can switch.
I'm not in charge of the questions.
So you mentioned Nashville earlier. I was thinking about Austin and New Orleans too. It's a lot of live music scene. So how much does a recording studio skill set translate to that? And are you guys thinking about presence in Coachella and other such events?
That's interesting that you say that. Yes. So I think I just forgot the first part, but that's why, like, working with the festival Outside Lands was a big deal. So yeah, it's hard to, Outside Lands also supports us. So they were more motivated to get us access. It's really hard to get backstage access to a big festival, but there's definitely possibilities there. Live music, yes, we're placing women in live sound as well. So even though the studio is kind of where, we're drawing people in, we're actually training them in all facets, whether it's post-production for film to live sound to podcasts. So there's a common thread through all of those disciplines. So hopefully that answered that. I don't know.
You mentioned the Tech Museum, that you're partnering with the Tech Museum. Is that to have kind of like camps in the winter and the summer? Is that where you going?
No, we're partnering with them. They're providing the space so that we're doing all our workshops there because we don't have a location in San Jose. So they're providing the space and the schools are coming to that space. As far as summer, I mean, we're doing our girls programs are primarily after school, sometimes during school, but pretty rarely, right? Mostly after school. Camps in the summer, we're kind of, I don't know, we're thinking about, I don't know about San Jose. Not yet. Yeah. You can see we're juggling a lot of things all the time, kind of like, which one should we do? I feel like I'm neglecting this side of the room, like I don't know why I did that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go like this more.
I have a question.
Sure.
So how do you get connected to the communities, like the girls?
We're partnering directly with the school district and the schools within the district. So yeah, it's not, we really don't market it. We don't need to market it, thankfully.
Yeah.
So we do kind of a pitch in the school, and then the girls in that school it's all free and they can sign up.
And you mentioned that in your events we could volunteer. How do we do that? Do you have a newsletter? We look at your webpage.
So
did you cover that and I missed it? I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. Social media, or if you become a member or an ally, then you're on that mailing list.
Okay.
You can
And
also just sign up for the mailing list on the website. Now that I'm saying that, yes, you can. There is a newsletter. We don't bother you that often.
well, if you're having all these
Once a month,
famous
maybe.
people, we're
Yeah.
all gonna volunteer. There was another question online, and that was around maybe similar to what Inram raised. You are very well connected. Perhaps the conversation would be geared towards higher education offerings for the young ladies. Not really sure.
We do. So we do have a certification program for adults where we are motivating them to get into higher education if they haven't already, or they might be choosing a new career path. Our interns are coming from college programs, so we're pretty tight with a lot of colleges because that's where we recruit our interns. So it kind of goes both ways. Where folks that wouldn't generally pursue higher education, we're encouraging them to do that, and then we're also recruiting out of colleges and universities for our internship program. That answers that. Yes.
Sedona from, I actually just graduated from Purdue this year, so
Wait,
boiler up.
Purdue, that's
Yeah.
my alma mater.
I know.
Wait, one more Purdue person? Wait, three? How many people from Purdue in this room? Three. Okay, that's good. There's 4 of us. We can start a club.
Nice. So I wanted to ask you on the note of college interns, have you looked at all into Purdue's multidisciplinary program? It's a smaller program at Purdue, but we have a bunch of different concentrations within the multidisciplinary program, and one of them is acoustical engineering. Our program
I
is
love
almost
it.
like 50-50 women and females. It's one of the higher ones for Purdue's engineering programs in terms of the gender disparity. But I just
don't
wanted to
know
make
about
that
that.
suggestion. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I know how to find that though.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they had an acoustics program. They didn't when I was there, but again, pre-electricity.
Yeah, it's a lot smaller of a program. Actually, like fun fact, the biological engineering program at Purdue used to come out of the multidisciplinary program. So it kind of like when it gets too big, it becomes its own school. But
Yeah.
right now, the acoustical program is one of the biggest in the multidisciplinary program.
Oh,
So I
that's
think that'd be a
awesome.
great place to look for interns. I'd be happy to connect you with that.
That's great. Yeah. I love, well, my heart is there. I felt supported there. So, did you feel supported at Purdue? Where's the other? Yeah, see? And it's in the Midwest. Come on. A little behind the times there, and we were supported. No, so that's good. I'm glad that you told me that. I have more questions, but do you want me to go to that? I think that's on here. This is from registration. I don't know if who these people are, who I'm addressing at this point, but these were the questions. Some of them we kind of did, right? But are there other questions here before okay, I can do that. I liked this, how do you start your own recording studio? That's a multifaceted, difficult question. It depends on what you're calling a recording studio. Our recording studio probably has, I don't know how many tons of materials in there to make it isolated sound-wise. So it is a very expensive construction process to make those rooms isolated and soundproof. And then if you look at how much cable we pulled, over 2 miles of cable to connect all the rooms together. On a smaller scale, yeah, you could have a recording studio in your bedroom, but then, right, you've got noise issues and things like that. So I don't know where we are in the scale of recording studio, like laptop or acoustic space that's treated nicely. So we started ours because we had, I had a lot of connections to manufacturers, and so all the gear in our studios donated. We have about $250,000 in gear that was donated across the industry. So that's how we were able to launch that and make it happen. So you need some gear and people that know how to use it and wire it up together. And then you have to hope people want to come and record there. That's your other, because a lot of studios are closing down. Right? Most recording studios are closing down, which is great business for us. So we're like, yay, close down. We'll stay open. I think that's why we're so busy. We're booked. We're pretty booked. I liked this one because it was very specific. Can remote employees use time to give, which I don't know what that is, but I'm going to. You think you're good? Number 5, how does your work today differ from what you envisioned when you started out? Wow. Did not envision this at all. So this wasn't like Terry's dream job by any stretch. I have the personality of an engineer, so I'm really introverted. So I actually, this speaking to you right now isn't like my comfort zone, but I've learned how to do it. So if you had said you're going to talk to people all over the country about how to do this, I would have been like, no way in hell, not doing it. But I also realized if I, wanted to do this thing, and I had done a lot of stuff in my career already. So by the time I got to Women's Audio Mission, I had already been an engineer. I had already been a touring musician, recording artist, and I had already been a professor. So I kind of, I just did whatever presented itself, and that was fun. And then I did other things, right? So wait, is that really a 2? 2 minutes, people, that's it. So I answered it. I'm done. Could you share how your passion for music and sound led to this greater mission? Yeah, I think, where it really, I kind of answered it, but where it came from, when I was signed as a recording artist, I was able to go into recording studios with some pretty well-known producers. And so they were the ones that pointed out, look, you're an engineer. You can like build the studio. You could totally do this. And this was before there were schools for this. So I didn't know that it was a job or anything. So I think me being able to show people that it's a career that leads to other things kind of led to Women's Audio Mission happening. 30 seconds, right? 29, 28. We have 30 seconds, Judy. Now you might have 20.
I'll make it quick because I know the Cisco crowd and you guys probably want some root causes to that decline of women in tech, which has got to be eating you alive, I'm sure. There's a lot of studies on this. I was actually very aware of that statistic long before I became involved with WHAM. The Catalyst has a study on it, NC-WIT, which is National Conference for Women in IT. The reason they give multiple reasons, but the two that always stuck with me, one is positive, and that is that women have more options today than they did 20 to 40 years ago. The negative one is that their moms were women in tech and they have discouraged their daughters to go that same route. Or the daughters saw their moms and said, that's not the life I want. Ooh. So I think it's up to us to change that perception.
Oh, really?
And exactly. Mom was never home. She was always working. She was always online, and I don't want that life. So I think it's up to us to change that and to make sure that tech and science and math become cool again.
Yes, please. Now there's more questions. I don't know how to handle this, Ripple. This is like I don't know. I can hand my mic out at this point, right?
Before everybody goes, I wanted to say hello to our Mexico City attendees. Can you guys see us? Hi. Is your audio on? Wait. I am the one who has to unmute. Sorry. 1 second. Oh yeah, you're mute. Okay, we should be able to hear you. Hello?
Hi.
Yay! Woo! Thank you for joining us.
Hi, and thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Was there one last question? It's 101. How about you ask the question afterwards? I just want to quickly thank Terry for coming today and presenting to us.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming. For December, we're going to have our year-end event on December 5th. I'll send out the message. I'm thinking of doing an unconference. I'll put the topics in the invite, but look out for that one. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.